So, one of the first mini reviews I ever did was on Super Mario Advance 3, the GBA port of Yoshi's Island, originally debuting on the SNES, and after rewatching it, ooh, god, did I really push that mini aspect of the mini review. Not even 2 minutes long about talking about the actual game. I mean, sure, I was focusing more on the port than the game itself, but still, I could have talked a lot more about it. Which I guess I can do now with the original, so I guess view that original mini review as a companion piece to this. So after the huge success of Super Mario World, and the introduction of the breakout success of fan favorite Yoshi, Shigeru Miyamoto wanted to develop a new game based on Yoshi as the main character, especially after feeling displeased with some of the spin-offs like Yoshi's Cookie, Yoshi's Egg, and Yoshi's Safari, wanting to instead have a new title be actually based around Yoshi as a character and his abilities. Ironically, Miyamoto's original pitch would be denied, with Nintendo's marketing department feeling that it was lacking visually compared to the then visual juggernaut Donkey Kong Country. So he would later rework the visuals to be more stylized and cartoony, which would be accepted after, and become the game we know today, with the only trace of the original style being left in the opening movie, or at least it's believed to be. And honestly, smart move, because even to this day, Yoshi's Island is still one of the most beautiful looking games to date, and has a timeless feel to it thanks to its crayon-like theming. It's honestly actually pretty amazing how well this game still holds up. For many people, it's still the best Yoshi platformer to this day, and you know what, I can see why, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. The story is actually a prequel and shows the beginnings of a newborn Mario and Luigi, and the adventure takes place after Kamek attempts to steal the babies after getting a premonition about the trouble these brothers will cause to the Koopa family in the future. Unfortunately, Luigi is captured, while Mario plummets to an island inhabited by dinosaurs. Good thing this is Nintendo, cause anywhere else, this probably would've took a very dark turn. But no, the Yoshis are kind creatures that take up the task of helping this big-nosed toddler in reuniting with his brother, and stops the plans of the evil wizard. So yeah, a pretty cute setup, and honestly a smart way of making Yoshi the main character, and not having Mario overshadow him in any way. Well, except for the title, obviously they wanted to get as many copies sold as possible. But really though, outside of this being a branch of the Mario series, it's nowhere near what could have been considered traditional. Yoshi's who you're mostly playing as, and as we saw in his debut game, Yoshi definitely has abilities that the brothers don't. Much like last time, Yoshi will act as a meal for the red plumber to be, and can once again swallow enemies. This time around though, he'll actually be able to produce eggs the moment he swallows most enemies, which can be used as a projectile. It's amazing how disgusting you can make that sound if you really wanted to. Yoshi the shit slinger. You know, that actually has a pretty good ring to it. But this will become one of Yoshi's main form of attacks since there's gonna be plenty of enemies that you won't be able to just jump on. He also gets the ground pound, and as far as I know, this is the first game that actually lets the player fully utilize this move. A bit situational, mind you, but it does have its uses. And his last new main move is the flutter jump, which will let him get some extra airtime before he has to fall, getting a lot more distance than normal since you can just keep using it. For a platformer, this is going to be your best friend, and really is a much more balanced version of the cape feather when it comes to descent. Yoshi also gets some new power-ups too. One of the semi-common ones you'll find are the 3 types of watermelon that can be used to spit seeds, fire, or frost kill or take out enemies. They can be useful, but from what I've found, they've never been anything game-changing. But the main power-ups you'll be using this time around are the temporary transformations. Admittedly, these are really fucking weird, and in my opinion kind of out of place since it just doesn't seem like something Yoshi would be able to actually do. But despite that, each one is usually about just trying to reach this block at the end of a section. For the most part, they're okay, but the only one I ever felt that really left any impact was the helicopter transformation, since it has the most mobility and you can cover a lot of air while doing so. So yeah, quite the upgrade from last time. Yoshi is a hell of a lot more versatile and offers a completely new and interesting gameplay style that you weren't getting anywhere else at the time. His only weakness though, this little bastard. The annoying little fuckhead that acts as your unofficial health bar. Outside of being crushed, spikes, lava, or bottomless pits, Yoshi is completely busted. He's invincible, and it's unbelievable the amount of stuff he can just shrug off and just pick up like nothing happened. But he is anchored by this kid. Anytime Yoshi gets hit, he'll lose Baby Mario, and one of the most annoying elements in any game will play here, and will definitely make your ears bleed. And I know a lot of people like to take the easy joke and condemn the brat's crying, but to me that's not really the issue. On its own, I never found it to be that bad. It's the excessive beeping that goes along with his crying. Oh, that fucking timer. It will make damn sure that Baby Mario is your #1 priority, because if it reaches 0, Kamek's toadies will capture them and then counts as a death. And to be honest, this is one of my only real criticisms about this game. To me, it just wasn't needed. I know they wanted to make it apparent that you shouldn't be leaving Baby Mario behind if you do get hit, but to me, his crying would have been more than enough. Having 2 ear-grating sounds to signify this was just obnoxious, especially when you're probably going to get hit quite a bit in this game, because Yoshi's Island is by no means an easy game. Sure, it's not the hardest game I've ever played, but maybe after the first or second world, the game doesn't hold your hand. This is due to the fact that out of just about every 2D Mario-esque platformer, and in this case I do count it more in line with Mario Platformer despite recognizing it being a spin-off, this is probably one of, if not one of the most ambitious 2D platformer titles in this series. I'm not kidding, the jump from Super Mario World to this game is unreal, which hey, after a nearly 5-year gap between both games, it's kind of fitting. I already talked about how beautiful this game looks, but really though, that's thanks to this game not copying and pasting themes nearly as much. There's a lot more variety in visual themes this time around, whether you got your plains, jungles, underground areas, snow mountains, forest, and all the different styles that the castle levels take. You'll never get bored when it comes to themes, and usually this plays into the level design too. Much like the Donkey Kong Country series, 2 levels rarely ever feel similar, and they're always introducing new ideas, like the chain chomps nosediving to land from the background, levels where you have to carve your way through to reach the end, or even the couple times where Yoshi can get high off these creatures. Something to this day that still blows my mind that the team actually got away with back then. I mean, hell, look at clearly Yoshi's mind has been blown too. I would love to test it out for research. But really though, each level does offer something new to tackle each time, and it can be exhilarating trying to solve it. The game also encourages a lot of exploration due to the happy flowers, red coins, and little star dudes that build up Baby Mario's meter. Each level is ranked on how many of each of the 3 collectibles you collect, totaling a score of 100 for each level. If you manage to get 100 points in each of the levels on a specific board, then you'll unlock a 9th level for that world, and they are easily the hardest in the game. This scavenger hunt is the key factor that can change the game from being a comfortable but still challenging experience, all the way to a really difficult game, and it's not for the faint of heart. Sure, the happy flowers and red coins aren't too bad, especially after a couple tries figuring out where they are, but the little star guys and building that meter up to 30, ooh, now that will test one's patience. Granted, there are some exploits that you can use on some levels to get it up to 30, or use an item to boost it up if you have it, but those methods aren't a guarantee. In fact, you can't even use some of them, like if you're in a boss room, for example. So not getting hit has become a lot more important. Personally, I've never 100%ed this game, as I've always felt the main gameplay was more than enough of a satisfying experience. But for the completionist, this element of Yoshi's Island can be the best experience ever, or drive you completely nuts depending on your skill level, cause good fucking luck. You'll need it if you're determined to tackle this game-changing element, because on top of figuring out the level design of item placement, you'll be figuring out how the enemies work too, so that you'll have a better chance of getting those 30 points. And there's a buttload of new enemies this time around. Sure, there are still Goombas and Koopa Troopas that act as you would expect them to, but they are definitely downplayed in this game, opting out for more creative and new additions. I mean, there's so many new introduced here that I'd be here forever going over all of them, but on the whole, I'd say they did a pretty good job, and the team clearly had some fun here. One of my favorites are the Sluggers, little bandit-like beans that'll use a baseball bat to swat the eggs right back at you. Or how about the Boo Man Bluffs that are blindfolded boos that use audio cues to find you? It's great stuff. This creativity also applies to the bosses, and I am saying it right now. These are probably the best set of bosses in the entire series, Yoshi or Mario, it doesn't matter. All of them provide something completely different and will test your abilities in different ways, and they also stand out more thanks to the FX chip, giving them much more life than they would have got otherwise. It also helps that a good chunk of them are actually pretty challenging, and will definitely test your skills at points. But even if they were easier, it comes back to that creative ingenious, like Bert the Bashful where the goal is to essentially pants him. Or how about the Prince Froggy fight where Kamek will shrink you instead, and you have to fight inside the amphibian. But to me, the coolest Easter egg in such a forward-thinking design choice was where if you were savvy enough, you can kill the naval piranha before the fight even begins. You just never saw that kind of game design back then. Even now it's pretty rare, where there's only a couple games that I can think of that did similar stuff. It adds so much more charm to a title that's already gushing with it to begin with. Yoshi's Island might not be my favorite game in the Mario franchise, but there's no denying that it's easily one of the best games ever made, let alone possibly the best Mario game ever made. If there was anything to criticize outside of the obnoxious beeping signal when you get hit, then really it'd probably just come off as nitpicking. Yoshi's Island did so many things right that it's damn near flawless in my opinion. I think anyone who plays video games owes it to themselves to play this at least once in their lifetime. It's a legacy title for sure. So as I established in the past, the Mario Advance series had a pretty good track record. Mario Advance 1, I believe, is a definitive version of Super Mario Bros. 2, and while I felt that Super Mario Advance 2 wasn't as ambitious as its predecessor, the changes it did make to Super Mario World was more than welcome. And of course, it would only make sense for Nintendo to keep this Advance train rolling, and next up was Yoshi's Island. Does it measure up to the other Advance titles? Unfortunately, I feel this is where they dropped the ball. But I feel there was no way they couldn't have with this port. Yoshi's Island was as close as you could get to a perfect platformer. It was colorful, its gameplay was unique, and it had so much polish. There's a reason why it's considered by many to possibly be the best platformer for the SNES. So what could you really do to make this port better, or at least on par with the original? Unfortunately, I don't think they could have, given they made some changes, but they are so minor that unless you lived and breathed the original, you're not going to pick up on it. Now, I give credit where credit is due, and I appreciate that they gave this port 6 brand new levels, which are good tests of gaming skill. It just isn't really enough to recommend this port over the original. Now, I made a joke in the Mario Advance 1 review that you're basically childish if you let the technical downgrades get to you, and I know some of you will say,
well, what the fuck, you're not recommending this because of the downgrades? Fucking flip-flopper.
Shut up. Cause the difference between that port and this one is that Mario Advance 1 made so many changes that it more than made up for the slight downgrades it did get. Mario Advance 3 on the other hand, well, you can't really justify it. Now, keep in mind, I'm not saying that this is a horrible port. In terms of pure gameplay, it's just as good as the original. But when you can't even see the difference between normal coins and the hidden red coins, it makes you wonder why you would play this version besides the portability aspect. Especially now when the original may very well become portable when the Switch becomes available. So my verdict on Mario's third outing for the Game Boy Advance is, it's not a bad port. It's damn near as good as the original. But that's the thing, why would you play this over the original?